Hello, welcome to Justice for All's podcast called Connections with Coffee. We are on episode 17, and I have with me Jessica Is it Rohrs?
Rohrs, yep.
Rohrs.
I always tell people like a lion roars.
There you go. That's how that is an easy way to remember it, because it's got an H in there, and you're like, right?
Yeah, it
and
does.
It just seems like it's a.
Yep.
Why is there an H? But
I don't know.
you didn't pick that name, did you?
Nope.
Sort of.
I just picked the guy.
You picked the man,
Yep.
and that's how it works. Mm-hmm. He probably didn't have a lot to say in that, I'm guessing.
No.
Okay. No. So Jessica is the executive director of Family Crisis Center. I guess, it'll be somewhat informal. Just kind of give a little bit. How long have you been there? We'll start with that, and then maybe a little bit of what you do. But I also want to get some background of you and where you kind of grew up and some of that too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, you'd be welcome to start wherever you want to. I know it goes back a little ways. No pressure.
So I've been with Family Crisis Centers. It'll be 10 years in October.
Okay.
Yes. So
2015, October of 2015.
October of 2015, yeah. I had interned with Family Crisis Centers back in college.
Okay.
So probably more along the lines of like 2010, because it was later into college.
Where'd you go to college?
University of Northern Iowa.
Oh,
In
okay.
Cedar Falls, yeah. But I got tied back to Family Crisis Centers. My mom was a clerk of court in Sioux County for a number of years.
Okay.
And so she just knew of Family Crisis Centers and of the work they did and reached out to them to see if I could do an internship. And that was really my first taste of Family Crisis Centers.
Okay.
My husband and I were living in Brookings, South Dakota at the time, after college, and then up until moving back here. And Family Crisis Centers was starting the statewide call center. So the Iowa Victim Service Call Center started in 2015. So my first day back at Family Crisis Centers was the first day that they started answering phone calls.
From the whole. So that's something we should get to that too. But let's go to just a little bit. So you went to University of Northern Iowa, undergrad in what sort of course of study?
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's in psychology, but then also one in public administration.
Oh.
Minor in family studies.
Okay.
So I knew I wanted to do some sort of leadership in a nonprofit.
Okay. You knew that going into when you started there?
I did. That's odd, isn't it?
That's grown. That is very grown up when you graduated.
Yeah, it's probably odd, but yeah, I just kind of knew at a young age that I wanted to be in leadership in a nonprofit.
Well, I think that's awesome.
So graduated from UNI, and then just a couple years ago, graduated from then Dordt University with my master's in public administration as well.
Okay.
So, yep.
Good deal. Very well educated. How'd you end up in Brookings then? I mean, we don't need to necessarily go into how you met your husband or any of that, but those are two different areas from here to Northern Iowa to then Brookings and
they are.
all that.
Jared graduated from SDSU in Brookings.
Oh, okay.
So we just ended up there after graduation, and that's where we both found jobs. I started at the Boys and Girls Club. So I worked there during our time in Brookings. And then the position came open at the call center, and we knew we wanted to come back here.
Sure.
To start a family. And
he does...
He's at Hog Slat.
Does
sales at Hog Slat.
Okay. So he's been in the ag side of things for quite some time.
Yes. And then, we raise livestock, and I say we loosely. Yeah.
Does it mostly him?
I kind of more identify as the investor.
You're like, we should get this, but we have to feed it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can take care of the feeding.
I kind of take like a hiatus through the winter months, and then when the sun starts shining again, then I'll start helping again.
So around now, you're like, hey, I can get back outside.
Yes, I have emerged.
It's not too cold, you know.
Yeah.
Things are greening up.
Exactly.
Sweet. Yeah. No, that's, all right. That's good. So you knew when you were, was there any, maybe, I don't know this, I've never thought about asking this. Is there something that happened in wherever you grew up that had you sort of lead into wanting to be in like a nonprofit or in leadership? Was there any sort of a pivotal moment or I don't know?
Yeah. I think probably if I look back, so I graduated high school from Spalding Catholic.
Okay.
And so from kindergarten on, I was in a private school that was really enforcing service.
Sure.
And so, through mission trips and just from being in a religious school setting where you're just talking about how Jesus serves people. How do we serve people? I think that embedded just the service in me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And so I think if I look back, that was probably the pivotal, just that foundational.
Something that was ingrained in the way that you were brought up and the way that you,
It was a way of life.
Yeah, the way that you are. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, right on. So give us an idea. You mentioned you've been there for 10 years and a statewide call center was also mentioned. What I don't know. Maybe I know more a little bit about what Family Crisis Center does a little bit because we have partnered together in some things when folks are looking for housing, whether that's temporary or full time, and whether that's the physical resource that we have in our warehouse that can work out. But give us an idea. What are some of the main things that Family Crisis Center does?
Yeah. So I think when people hear Family Crisis Centers, they think of domestic violence.
For sure.
Which is wonderful. I'm glad we're known as a resource for domestic violence, and certainly it's a large part of what we do.
Yep.
But we also just do a lot more in the sense of we have a homicide and violent crimes division that serves 29 counties in Iowa.
So people reach out via phone, or you have people who are representatives that go to counties' courthouses, or what does that look like? Yeah,
so a lot of referrals are coming in from DCI, Department of Criminal Investigations, FBI, our local law enforcement, sheriff's office, county attorneys, victim witness coordinators. So when a violent crime happens, such as somebody's killed in a drunk driving incident, somebody's murdered, kidnapping happens, arson, human trafficking.
Things that are hard to say out loud or think that don't happen in this area.
I think that's what we run into a lot is, many people will say, well, how many murders do we actually have?
29 counties is a lot.
And even just in our rural, and I'm always amazed at what doesn't make the news.
Oh, sure.
Our homicide and violent crimes advocates have really been on a lot of child death cases lately.
Man. That's awful.
And I think those are probably the hardest. They're all hard. Right?
For sure.
I think anytime a child's involved, there just is a different level
without a doubt.
And so really what that division is they're walking with the family through that crime. So we had a speaker at our gala in March who she lost her son to a drunk driver. And she really talked about just how our advocates stood beside her as she's obviously overwhelmed with grief. Oh. How do I even get out of bed in the morning?
Yeah.
On top of that, I'm worried now about, have they found the man that did that?
Oh, it was like a hit and run.
Yeah. Well, hers wasn't necessarily, they knew who had done that. But a lot of times in the situation, they're wondering who did it. Is law enforcement finding them?
Yep.
What are they going to be charged with? Are they out on bail?
Will there be justice of some variety, possibly?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, so helping to navigate through that process, right? We'll stay in communication with the county attorney and law enforcement, and we'll kind of find a client-centered way to deliver the messages to you.
Like a mediator of hard stuff.
Yeah. And so, law enforcement has a big job too, right? They're asked to do the hard thing of finding the person that has done the crime, and they're often overworked, They don't have enough resources in their
field. And there's only so much time in a day, and they're trying to track down multiple leads or whatever the case might be, I'm sure.
So asking them to not only do that, but in the same moment, take care of the family of the victim, that's impossible.
Yeah.
And so that's where we can really step in and say, okay, we can show up to the crime. We can help give death notices. We can be at the hospital as the family's trying to decide, are they taking their loved one off of life support? Sure. They're in trial with people too, right? They're waiting for them to get the verdict. They're helping them process what the next step is. So that's our homicide and violent crimes program. We also have a housing program.
Okay.
So, we own a condo in Sioux Center, looking to buy another one. So families who are fleeing from violence can move into that. Mm-hmm. But then we also have a rapid rehousing program. Mm-hmm. Family Crisis Centers used to have on-site housing. It was across the street from Dort.
Okay.
Where up to 12 families could live there at a time.
That's a lot of that's a lot of people in the same area with, I'm sure, varying degrees of I don't know, trauma.
Trauma, yeah.
And whatever's going on.
Trauma and lethality.
Yeah.
So we found that a lot of people, so now we're living together. I'm not just worried about my abuser finding me. I'm now worried about your abuser finding you.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm in the same room. My children are in the same room.
Oh, my goodness.
And so now I'm worried about...
That's a lot of layers.
Yeah. And then also I think when you bring a lot of people who are struggling with trauma, a lot of kids who are struggling with trauma into one space, it just increases, the likelihood that now I have your trauma on my shoulders.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're also hearing from a lot of people of, okay, I live in Rock Valley or I live in Hull. And so you're telling me that I have to come to Sioux Center to seek safety. Yeah. My kids are enrolled in the school system.
I don't want to move that.
I have a job.
Yeah.
And
hopefully. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so now just to seek safety, I have to give up my income. I have to move my children to school district. And I also maybe have to leave my mom and dad or my support system.
Yeah.
And so we just found better success in saying, you tell us what community you want to live in, and we're going to help you do that.
Yeah.
We're going to meet with you each month to help you get sustainable on your own.
Okay.
So by months, we might need to give you $500 to help you in month 1, but we're hoping by month 6, you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And so that looks like, how do we help you find a job? How do we help you get signed up for other programs? And just empowerment's really just like JFA. Empowerment is the ultimate goal.
Yep.
So that's our housing. We also have the statewide call center.
Oh, yeah. So you have people that are in your campus 24 hour, like that are in your call center day and night, different shifts, all of that.
Day and night, yeah. Since COVID, those advocates work from home. Okay. So they each have a home office.
All right.
And so, Family Crisis Centers is running 24/7. Because our advocates were committed to responding within an hour to any emergency in any of our counties. So that could be law enforcement calls us at 2 a.m. saying, this victim needs a ride to the Sioux City shelter.
Wow.
Our advocates responding within an hour.
To locate them a ride or to go get them, I guess. What is that?
To go get them.
To go get them.
And bring them. If it's that time, we do a hotel just for the safety of our staff as well as that person. But our staff the lights at Family Crisis Centers never go off.
Sure. Wow.
Last year, our call center answered over 50,000 incoming calls.
50,000.
Yeah.
So there's only 365 days in a year. That's a lot of phone calls per day.
It is. Don't ask me to do the math.
I'm not going to do the math. I'm not doing the math. I just am trying to get my head around it a little bit. Like, golly, 50,000 divided by that, or that's a lot of calls a day.
It is. Yeah, it's a lot of calls. And then of course our newest division is our Visitation and Exchange Center.
Okay.
And that's what we're currently doing construction project on in our Sioux Center building.
Yeah.
But that is where that program really was created from the domestic violence families we have helped, in saying a lot of times the reason why they leave a violent marriage or relationship is because they don't want their kids to think that that is normal.
Okay.
I want to get you out of this environment. Yeah. Teach you what is healthy, teach you what is normal. But then ultimately the courts decide there's 50-50 custody and you have to exchange the kids every Monday night at 7.
Oh, yeah.
And then that person who's still doing harm continues to use that time to threaten and belittle and continue the abuse. And then the kids are sitting in the car continuing to watch it.
Sure.
And so it was kind of from those families that were like, if we want to stop abuse in the home, we have to impact children more. Mm-hmm. We have to stop generational abuse. And so the exchange center is the one parent comes to one door, the other parent comes to the other. They never cross paths.
Okay.
And our staff exchange the kids.
Yeah.
And we're seeing really good impacts from that in the sense of the child doesn't have to worry about managing mom and dad's feelings.
I would imagine they feel some of that.
Yeah, I can't show excitement to see dad because mom's right behind me and I don't want to make her feel sad.
Exactly. Or vice versa. Yeah, I can totally, that would be very difficult.
Yeah, and then their little 7-year-old body doesn't know how to manage that, so then they're acting out in school.
Oh, I'm sure.
And, there's behaviors. And so have seen really good effects from that. And then the visitation center part of that is kids who are in the foster care system.
Oh, okay.
So kids who are in the foster care system or maybe they're not in the foster care system, they're still with one of the parents, but the other one has lost parental rights, either temporarily or permanently.
Yeah.
And that's really where they get to spend time with them. So,
Okay.
Just giving them a safe space to help them keep that relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
That's Family Crisis Centers.
Man, that's something.
We're working on an elevator speech because that's really cumbersome and
That was
confusing.
That was close to 10 minutes, maybe 15.
Yeah, we're working on it.
That's all right. There's a lot there, so you don't need to try to unpack it real quick. It's not a light deal.
Yeah, there's a lot of ins and outs. And I think even after I explain that all, people are like, what does this actually look like? Like, how does that translate into real life? And so I think ultimately it's just showing up where that person needs us to show up. What are your priorities and how can we help you?
Yeah.
And, just like at JFA, sometimes that's, I don't have food for my kids tonight.
Yeah.
Can you call the county attorney for me? Can you help me find housing? So it's really, if we oversimplify it, it's just, what do you need help with today?
Sounds easy.
Yeah, I know.
Meeting people where they're at. It sounds easy. Like, what do you need today? But it's so selfless, and that's difficult, I would imagine, to find. I bet it's probably hard for you to find not only folks who have that mindset, but to be able to continue to show up every, whenever their schedule is. Because I would think, like, if it was me and I had to, and it's not me, so I hear a little bit of it through people that come through our door a little, but JFA deals in a lot of physical resource, so we don't deal in emotional resource, which is part of. I mean, you guys are fairly much all emotional availability and the heaviness that comes with that. Like do you have people? Maybe I don't know if this. I'm just thinking, like, do you have people that your people go to sort of debrief or talk about, share with them the hard things? I would imagine if it's someone who hears hard thing, this 4-year-old, this 10-year-old, this 11-year-old, this mom, you could get all of those calls in an hour and then feel overwhelmed.
Oh, absolutely. Our staff are what make Family Crisis Centers.
Oh,
our staff are why we receive so many referrals, because of just the really great people that work and volunteer at Family Crisis Centers. I do think it takes a really special person, somebody that can turn that kind of part of their mind off when they go home at night. Yeah. And not everybody can do that. And so the people we have, we're just so grateful for them. And so, to answer that question, we have a therapist that leads a vicarious trauma group every month. So just kind of talking about whether we like it or not, this work is going to affect you. So let's talk about how you're seeing it show up in your life.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then we also have a survivors unit. So we also have a lot of staff who are survivors themselves, and that's why they're in this work. And that can be tough in itself. So we have a group for our staff who identify as survivors, for them to just talk as a group on maybe how that's triggering some of their past trauma and things like that. We have an EAP program, but yes, we love to see our staff utilizing therapy.
Yeah. I would be in that role. I would certainly advocate for that as well and find ways to help make that happen, because I think someone's certainly mental health, but their well-being, just the ability to want to show up each day and do the Lord's work, really, of just sitting there and listening to someone. Like, I think of where it is in Matthew. Like, if you see me on the side of the road, if you saw me when I was hurt, if you that's what you're doing, is you're seeing them and meeting them where they're at, and that's just something that is not easy in humanity. So I'm encouraged to hear that that's going on, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah, that's good. I think probably the other hard part about our advocates do every day is it's so much about, it can't be about your own pride, or it can't be about your own agenda, right? Yeah. So if I kind of always go back to this example of, there was a woman that came into our office, and she was 9 months pregnant, and she was strangled the night before.
Oh, wow.
And in my mind, coming from safety, I think, your priority is to get out. My priority is to get you out, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't hers. So when I asked her, what is your priority? It's the food. I'm pregnant. I haven't eaten in a couple days. I know I need to eat. And I know I'm actually safer if I stay, which seems like such a hard thing to imagine.
I can't put myself in those shoes.
But she knew if I leave, I'm definitely murdered. Whereas if I stay, I'm not, but I do have to endure this violence. And so it was really just kind of working like, okay, let's get you that priority. Your priority right now is delivering a healthy baby and you staying healthy yourself.
Yep.
And then after the baby's here, then we can start working towards whatever you want to work towards. But you kind of have to give up what you feel like is best for their life and just really trust the fact that they know what's best for their life. And that can be hard to actually put into
for sure.
action.
For sure. I have that with family, and I'm like, hey, here's what, like, we have kids that I do that with, right? But they're like, I don't think so, Dad. I'm not doing that. Like, I can hardly imagine, like, are you sure? Like, it's easy just to tell someone, why don't you just do it this way? This is what, but like, trying to taking yourself out of things is the hardest thing probably to do, of like what I think should happen. And here's what I think. Yeah. Humans in general, and myself certainly included, very self-focused on what, how can I adjust, or what am I doing? How would this affect me? And how can I do? Like it's very much inward focused. So I think the whole organization, ministry, being outward focused and encouraging people to set aside what you got going on and just listen to somebody tell their story.
Yeah, I think, sometimes, especially when it comes to like human trafficking or domestic violence, it's like, oh, I saved them. Yeah. No, they saved themselves. Yeah. You helped them. Sure. You walked alongside them. Yep. But let's give the power back to them.
That is...
they're doing that work.
I can't imagine how hard it would be if being in an abusive relationship to then come to the decision of, I can't be in this relationship anymore, and then what is the next step, and how do I go about doing that? Like, that's a critical decision. Nobody can make that decision for them. They need to make that themselves. Yeah. And continuing to encourage that and be proud of someone for doing that, I think would be an important part of recovery, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I think as nonprofits, it's really easy to get into the mindset of almost that control, right? Yeah. Like, if you do A, we'll give you this. Yes. If you do this, then you could have financial resources. Right. And at the end of the day, that's kind of putting control back on them. They're still not being able to be in the driver's seat. Right. And so it's kind of like, how do we just strip that all away and just say, what do you need? Yeah.
Which is not easy to do.
No. Yeah.
At all. All right. So in thinking of this organization and call centers, buildings, employees, all of that, just as much as you're willing to, like, where does some of the funding come from? And what does that look like? You mentioned a gala. I'm sure it's probably a combination of asking for dollars, but maybe there are other ways. I don't know what, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So our annual budget is about $3.8 million. Okay. 2.5 come from federal and state grants, and then we raise, about 1.3 from community support. Sure. We have a thrift store in Sioux Center called Renewed Hope. It's right next to Walmart. And all of those proceeds come back to the operational budget. Okay. County Board of Supervisors are very supportive. We're grateful for that.
Is it just, when you say county board, is it like just Sioux County, or is it like all of the counties where y'all are in? Like, do you have...
I think we have about 20 counties that give support. And then those funds go back into their county. So the funds that O'Brien County gives us, those go back into the services we provide O'Brien County. Yeah. And then, fundraisers. So our gala, we have a golf tournament. End of the year appeals, and then just really, really generous donors that we rely on. Sure. If anyone's following the news, federal funding is a little nerve-wracking.
So I've heard. Yeah.
We're trying to stay in the really hopeful perspective on that, but I think as time goes on, that's getting a little tougher to do. So.
Yeah, there's some up and down with the current administration and some of the services that can be tied to that. And it's just, that's hard to, you would talk about control. You don't have any control over that. It either gets turned on or it gets turned off, right?
Yeah. And, I'm all for, I do think we all need to be good stewards of the money. For sure. And there has to be that accountability, and we should absolutely make sure that funds are being spent well.
And they probably, in years past, they've probably required those things from you, I'm sure.
There certainly is a lot of oversight.
Oh yeah.
Which I completely understand. So yeah, we just keep praying that victims of crime are kept a priority, and every day just feels a little bit differently. So we're hoping to find some solid footing here in the next couple of weeks. So. That would be
great. That would be great.
Yeah. It would be. So
we can, we'll just keep believing that. I don't know. My thought is, and maybe it's a little bit not glib. What's the word I'm looking for? Maybe it's a little bit trite to just say, "Well, Lord's provided for you so far for how long, and it's been through different administrations and different things, and however many years that this has been. So I'm sure it'll just keep going." Of course, but I'm not in your shoes, and I'm not in the organization's shoes to be like, "But how is it really going to show up?" Because I find that here a little bit like, our budget is smaller, but there are still things that need to get paid. People need to be paid. Lights need to be, just the whole aspect of how the operation needs to continue to happen, and to continue to it's I kind of see the Lord putting it on me like, hey, we set this ministry up for you, and you're doing what I'm calling you to do, but we'll continue to provide for this ministry as it has been for a long time. It's just darn humanity and wanting to control things sometimes.
That's exactly it. And that's the space I'm trying to sit in is, okay, if one funding stream shuts off, then we just find another. And the Lord will guide us in that process as well. The work of finding the other is not for the faint of heart.
No. But you don't have to, you just have to let it percolate. I don't know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's just kind of where we're choosing to sit too. It'll be okay. I don't necessarily know how, but
maybe it's not our job to know how.
That's right. Yeah.
But I want to know how.
Yeah, one day. Soon enough.
I know. It'll be what it is. That's such a. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of that, but
yeah. But we can't, spend all of our time thinking about it or worrying about it.
For sure.
Borrowing troubles from tomorrow. Because that's how I started out. And, when just kind of all the talk of it started was just like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And it's just like, no, let's just sit in the peace of we'll control what we can control and let go of everything else. Yeah. And that's maybe the only way to get by. So.
I'd like to think, I try to get by that way just in my life, like not just here in ministry, being the executive director at JFA, but in my relationship with my kids and with my wife. It's like, hey, I can control how I react to some things, but I want to be able to let go of things that I can't control. And certainly federal funding is going to be one of those things you're not controlling.
No.
It's for sure. People maybe don't know who's controlling any of that, and I don't even know what to say to that. It's just kind of what that is.
Yep.
So, all right. So we covered a lot of Family Crisis Center, which is part of the idea of Connections with Coffee. Yeah. Are there ways that, I know that I've reached out. So Justice for All has transitional housing, and we have a vacancy currently. I know I got an application from someone in your organization recently. Yeah. Are there other ways that we've worked together?
Well, I think with our thrift store.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you have some JFA volunteers.
There's folks that will pick up some excess things there that they're bringing up here.
They were at our volunteer lunch last week.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, nice.
They were a joy.
How often do you do volunteer lunch things?
Once a year.
Okay.
Not often enough,
We do twice a year.
Oh.
So we have one. I was just talking with some of the folks in there. We have, and they appreciate the liver and onions. I don't know if you've ever had liver. No, I'm guessing by that reaction, you haven't.
No.
So it's been before I started here. I'm coming up on 10 years here at JFA. This was a thing that it's a generational thing that they enjoy liver, but we will cook.
I actually wouldn't volunteer for you on the basis of I'd have to eat liver.
You don't have to. It's not
it's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement. There's an alternative option to liver, but there have been a good number of folks that do enjoy that.
Sure.
But every spring we continue to try to show appreciation because our ministry wouldn't be able to operate at all.
No, I know it. Yeah.
Without the help that they're putting in. And it's, I guess, I continue to get reminded of the most non-renewable resource and the most valuable thing someone can give is their time. Mm-hmm. And there, folks that volunteer here to sort and to fix and to mend and to do all that, they're not getting paid.
Right.
You know, they're here because they want to be a part of something that is good and something that is, perhaps bigger than what they are. Or maybe they're just looking for, the ability to relate to people and community. And whatever the reason is, we're glad to have them.
Absolutely.
So,
sitting there at our lunch, it's like, oh man, I wish we could give you so much more than a lunch.
Sure,
right?
sure.
Although I'm sure they appreciate the liver and onions, but it's just like, what they give our agencies, how they impact the people we serve is just, you can't put that into an appreciation lunch.
For sure. So, there's a few ways. I think 5 or 6 years ago, as part of the rapid rehousing, there was a referral that came through, and and we helped move some. Like I said, we deal in physical resource, and so someone was moving into a place, and that we help with that. That's any of those sort of things. We like to try to stay in the vein that we're in and be able to support different ministries, and that's part of what I enjoy about getting to know other ministries and other people, and how can we work together. And maybe that's not always the mindset some people have, but I believe our God's big enough to provide for everybody and all of the things. And if we can encourage one another and learn from one another, and hey, we can support in how you're helping and what we do. We're not going to try and do what you're doing. You do you, and we'll be able to work together in that. So,
unfortunately, there's enough work for all of us.
Right.
And, Family Crisis Centers isn't successful without JFA, without Atlas, without, because where our work ends, that's where you guys pick up, or that's where Atlas picks up, or that's where whoever picks up. Yeah. And so I think a lot of times people think maybe nonprofits are competed for the dollars or, whatever. And it's just, I think once directors kind of grasp the idea of we need each other in order to actually have the impact we want to have. I think our supporters like to see that too, in the sense of you're not working in a silo. You guys are coming together to really make this community better. And we know, just knowing that we can't do all of the thing to do, we can't do everything. No. At all. No. Doing things well of what the each area and each ministry is called in, and then be able to have the support from the other places, I think makes a lot of sense. It does. I think it's a good system. Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't have additional questions. I think there's some good information that was out there about Family Crisis Center and yourself. We didn't go back into your background a little too much. You're a little younger than me, but that's okay. I think you do very well in your role. I love how articulate you are. I love how passionate you are about it. I think you've got a great level head. Just being in your position, from what I've gotten to know about you, it suits you very well. And so I'm encouraged to know that leadership is there in Family Crisis Center. I think there's only going to be great things. I know there's going to be roller coasters with federal funding and all those sort of things, but I would certainly be available to listen to anything. But I think you got a great team and a good group that things will get worked out how the Lord needs to have them get worked out. Yeah, absolutely. The answers will come soon enough. For sure. So, we'll wrap up this episode of Connections with Coffee, episode 17. My name is Joel De Wit, Executive Director at Justice for All. Jessica Rohrs, Executive Director at Family Crisis Center, with an H in her name. Roars like a lion. I don't know. Like a lion. Something like that. Yeah. So hopefully you enjoyed listening to some of the things that we were able to bring up and share about. And thank you very much for listening and watching. And God bless. Thank you.